Hello, darling beloved hearts. My name is Evonne and welcome to the Cycle Report for the 27th of July 2019. I come to you from Dja Dja Wurrung country in Central Highlands, Victoria, Australia in the Southern Hemisphere. So with the Earth cycle at the moment, we are almost 1 week away from the midpoint between winter solstice and spring equinox, which in pagan terms we would call Imbolc. It is time of the birthing. It's the time of the awakening. The land is starting to show itself, and it's actually the start of spring. You know, not the Gregorian calendar, which would be the 1st of September, but on the land. We are starting to see, the newness come through. The new leaves are starting to poke through. We are starting to see the daffodils coming up. We've got here the bottle brush or the clistamine, which is always a point of, so clistamine in the spiritual world is meaning transition. It's a transformational essence made from clistamine. And so it's a point of we are definitely moving into something very, very different to what we've experienced in the last 3 or 4 months. So it's, you think of birthing, and it's in a line with sort of, if you think of the energy around 3 o'clock. And I know that my teacher Jane Hardwicke Collings would always talk about in her moon song workshops for the School of Shamanic Womancraft that 3 o'clock there's always a different light. It's the portal of birth and death. A lot of babies are born at 3 o'clock in the morning or around about that time, and a lot of people die at that point. And it's still heavily in the dreamscape, but there is something very, very different to this time, this point in the wheel. So here in this land, we are starting, as I said, the daffodils are starting to come through. The wattle is almost there. It's almost the burst forth, telling us that the sun is on its way. Kookaburras awakening. How's that? Also, we're starting to think about, what we need to do to prepare our gardens for the summer planting, which will happen in a few months' time. So, it's the bringing out the compost that we have had, that we've been working on all winter. It's the pulling the weeds out. It's the starting of thinking of those seeds that we're planting as well in the garden. It's also really interesting here on the land that I live on. Actually, we have a plant called fumitory, and it's like a little herb, and the story goes that it looks like a puff of smoke coming from the earth, from the underworld. So the spiritual significance of this particular little flower, and I'll post the picture on my Instagram and so you can all have a look at it, is that it's like the little flowers, the little puffs of smoke coming from the underworld, from the earth, which for me, it feels like, we're coming out of the underworld, but there's still some more that we may need to attend to before we really step out, which will be around spring equinox. So, have a think what's arising for you right now, especially as we're moving into this dark moon, which is next week. So as we move into this space of the really deep harvest of the moon cycle, what is it that we need to still deal with in the underworld that came up through the winter solstice, and especially through the eclipse that we have just go through. So we're coming through the harvest of that eclipse season. So for me in particular, I've been so tired this week, and so it feels like, that's a clue for me that I really need to look at. I need to really savor these last few weeks or month into the darkness that we still have, to really rest my body, because, maybe I haven't rested enough through this winter period. So if I want to have peak energy coming into the awakening into spring and summer, that this is the time for me to rest my body, because I know once spring, really hits, so, the high spring, sort of September, October, November, December, I'm going to need a lot of energy to sustain me going through those months. So it's a reminder to me that I still need to do some work from the underworld, so from the dark shadows. So I guess the three, this time in the wheel also is a time for visionary. So that feels like a good visionary thing to really step up and take note as to what's happening around me and in my body. Both, spiritually and physically and emotionally, because it's been a really big week. So we are in this descent phase of the moon, and we move into a new moon next week, which it couples with the new moon is the same time as we click into Imbolc, so which would be traditionally on the 2nd of August. So now is the time of letting go of all that no longer serves. And so what's arising from this point that we need to let go of? And my personal cycle, I am in day 5 or 6, actually 6. So I started bleeding very, very early. So I've had a really short cycle, the last cycle, and it's been an interesting bleed that it's carried on for a really long time. So it hasn't been my sort of traditional sort of 27, 28 day bleed. It was more of like a day 16 bleed, and the bleed has gone on for a really long time, but not heavy, but really quite mucky. And that is brought up. So as I move into this dark descent moon of the lunar cycle that had 2 eclipses, I really feel that my body's doing a lot of letting go of. So stuff that I can't take in with me into this new cycle, Earth cycle that we're in. So that's my interpretation of it. Really trusting the process. I have these cycles where I bleed early and bleed for a long time, probably every, 6 cycles. So there is definitely a rhythm to it, and they're always in the lead up of deeply transitional processes, which I am moving into. So I really feel, so in a couple of weeks time, in about a month's time, I move into wilderness solo with the School of Shamanic Womancraft, with the Vic 4 Seasons journey in the Otways, with Nymh and all the amazing women who are showing up there. So I really feel the things arising from that deep commune with more than human space. So I feel that this is already a leading into that. And so a lot of ideas and visions are dropping into me at this point. And it feels like very connected to where the moon is at, of the letting go, and also where the earth cycle is at and where my personal cycle is at. So I can see the threads of it all weaving together. So that feels like that's it for me. I was going to talk about the goddess Bridget, which is related to Imbolc, but I think I'll talk about her next week, because the elements have been very strong in the last week or so, especially water, and Bridget is the goddess of sacred wells and fire. So we're still huddling around the earth, around the fire to keep ourselves warm, but also because there's a point in the time, here we go, we're just doing it anyway, the point in the wheel of the deep transformation, fire is the element of transformation. So once something goes through the element of fire, it never ever is the same again. So this feels like that point in the wheel that we are birthing something significant in our lives that we are going to take with us and run for the next 12 months. So such an exciting time to really, but also hearing what still needs to be attended to in your body and around you, and emotionally and spiritual and physical, and the earth to take with us into the new cycle. What stuff that needs to be attended to from the underworld and the descent. That's it for me. Just a quick sort of deep soul journeying. I do one-on-one, which is all about looking at what you need to work through to really step into your true authentic self and back into love. So that's happening. We've got 4 Seasons journey with School of Shamanic Womancraft happening all around Australia. I'll be in Tassie next year with Jane and Kristen Lee Reed, and there's Otways happening, Adelaide, Blue Mountains, Mullumbimby, Central Coast, New South Wales. It's also happening in Vermont in America, and also in Glastonbury in the UK. So exciting. The school is going amazingly. But from my heart to your beautiful hearts, I hope the descent into this dark moon is easeful but insightful. So much love. Thank you for listening. Bye.